Okay, so this is Ringing Room, and it's a website that's been developed to help ringers to keep in touch and to keep ringing during lockdown. Developed by a couple of ringers from America. Really, really clever website, amazing piece of software that was featured on BBC News recently. And some of you may well have seen that. Quite a few people in this session have been using Ringing Room already and have quite a bit of experience of using it. Other people, it might be new, as I say. So we'll just sort of talk through how it works to start. As I say, any questions, put them in the chat box. Because we have got lots of people who have used it before. If you've got suggestions, tips, that sort of thing that you'd like to share, then please do that using the chat function as well, because that would be really helpful. And we'll talk through some of those different things at the end of this intro bit, really. So yeah, this is the homepage, so ringingroom.com. The first thing I thought I'd quickly highlight is just along the top here. There are a few useful things. The first one is this help section, which has a really comprehensive and clear guide to how to use Ringing Room, how to set up new towers, how to ring the bells, how to make calls, that sort of thing. And particularly down at the bottom, a sort of thing about things that might cause issues sometimes. And obviously we're dependent here on the vagaries of the internet, and it can sometimes just stop, and you have problems with Wi-Fi or with the bandwidth of your internet or whatever, and sometimes that happens, and it's a sort of I guess a bit similar to like a rope breaking or a clapper falling out. It's something that we can't really predict or do much about, but does happen from time to time. There are a few things you can do though to help it work smoothly. So using Google Chrome is recommended. Trying to avoid having lots of other things going on with your internet at the same time. So like downloading a film or something like that while using Ringing Room might cause performance problems, that sort of stuff. But yeah, so the help section is really useful if you need any help with how it works. I'd also quickly highlight, if you do have any problems that aren't solved by that using Ringing Room, there's a section for making contact with the guys who've developed it. And also, if you're interested in supporting their work, so that's like buying server space and that sort of thing, you can donate to the project, but also they encourage people to donate to the Ringing World as well. Talking of the Ringing World, by happy coincidence, there was an article in yesterday's edition of the Ringing World about Ringing Room by Helen McGregor, and it's a set of tips for how to use Ringing Room. So if you subscribe to the Ringing World, then it's worth a read. If you don't subscribe, I would encourage you to subscribe. It's worth doing, and I think they've done an amazing job in the current circumstances of including lots of really interesting articles to help keep the ringing community together. So there's a little plug for the Ringing World as well. So we'll go from sort of the beginning of what to do with signing up to Ringing Room. Go to this section up here, and then to register, you put in an email address here. You choose a username, ideally one that helps you to be identified and isn't too silly, and then a password, and agree to that, and then register. And once you've done that, you will have an account. When you've got an account, you can then join a Ringing Room. So that might be that somebody will have sent you the tower name or ID number, and the ID number, you put the ID number in there and go to that Ringing Room. Or if you want to set up a new one, you can just type in a tower name and then create a new one. So like I could create one called Bromley 2, and then I've got a Ringing Room here like this. As you know, I've set up one for the Lewisham district, and quite a lot of you have joined it already, which is great. Just a thing to highlight, if you've got somebody who's interested in how Ringing Room works, but maybe doesn't want to have a go, you can send them a link with the word listen at the end, /listen, and then they can just sort of observe without some of the other functions that exist, but they can hear the ringing happening. Right, so I'm going to join the Lewisham District Tower, which we've got lots of people in already, loads of people in fact. If you're thinking you might want to have a go at this in a minute but haven't got an account yet, then probably in a couple of minutes time would be a good time to register perhaps. Okay, so a few different sort of things, a tour of the functions of Ringing Room once you're in there. First thing to highlight, if you get stuck, you can go to the help button just here to get help. You can change the number of bells from 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 and even up to 12. And you can change from tower bells to hand bells. And when you do that, the sound will change as well. A few new functions that have recently been introduced. There's now a chat function, so you can say, hello everyone. Can we not ring the bells just at the moment while I'm explaining it? Thanks. And there's various other things, so you can say hello to people that way. Right, how does it work when you're actually in the ringing room? There are lots of different ways of ringing the bells, and that's explained in this help section here that you can explore in your own time. You can do it by pressing the number of the bell that you want to ring, like 4 or 8 or whatever. I'm just going to share my computer sound briefly. So if you're in the ringing room, you might get the sound twice, just so you are aware of that. But yeah, so 4 will make the 4 ring, for example, or you can do it like that. Just point out that the handbells do actually sound like handbells, which is good. Okay, so the numbers ring the bells, or the space bar will ring the bell in the bottom right-hand corner, so the treble in this case for me. Or the right arrow key will ring the treble, or the J key will ring that bell as well. J and F might be familiar to users of A bell ringing simulator. So J and F will ring two bells like that. So will the left and right arrow keys as well. If you want to shift the perspective round, you can hold down Shift and then press the number of the bell you want to be in the bottom right corner, and then you'll be able to ring that particular bell. That's kind of how the ringing part of it works, really. There's a few other useful things. So you can assign bells to particular ringers, and that will automatically move the circle round to the so that ringer's got that bell in the right place, as it were. And what else can you do? Oh, the other thing is that you've got keys that give calls. So L does this.
Look to. Treble's going and gone.
G, I think, does this.
Go next time.
And so on.
Bob. Single. Stand next.
And I think there's probably another one. I think there's one for that's all. But I can't remember which one it was, but it would say in the help section anyway if you get stuck. So that's sort of how it works. I hope that's a helpful tour. If you've got questions, though, we'll just kind of quickly answer any questions that people have got. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's interesting. So Jen's just pointed out that yeah, you can basically run a whole practice now on Ringing Room without having something else like a Zoom call going, which is helpful. Any other top tips or things that people want to mention? Yeah, anyone can assign the bells, yes. So it's a recipe for bell ringing anarchy, perhaps, but yeah, anyone can assign the bells. The other thing I was just going to quickly mention before we have a go at this is that if you're thinking, well, this is all very well, this is great, but how do I find people to ring with? If you're on Facebook, you could join a group called the Ringing Room Takehold Lounge, which basically organizes practices on Ringing Room. So that's quite a useful thing to sort of be aware of. And also, it may be that you're your local tower might be organising practices, or that you could encourage your local tower to organise practices, which is good. The other thing that I was going to say, yeah, so thinking about like technology related tips, if you've got a Zoom call running, and everyone is on not muted, as it were, so everyone's microphone's on, and everyone's speaker is working, then you tend to get a sort of strange sound loop where you've obviously got the sound coming out of your speakers, but it's then going into your microphone coming out on the Zoom call and stuff. So it's a good idea to use headphones. Yeah, it's a good idea to use headphones if you're running something like a Zoom call at the same time. If you're not, it doesn't really matter particularly necessarily. Yeah. In terms of what it's like to ring, I think it's just worth saying here that for people who are used to using something like a bell, it's very similar in terms of how it works. But if you're not used to it, then it is worth pointing out really that it is quite a different experience, because to ringing in the tower, in a way, it's a really, really good learning tool, but you don't have quite the same things in terms of rope sight. So in terms, the sort of balance that we've got here, maybe in the tower we might be sort of using some rope sight and counting places and listening. The balance on Ringing Room goes a bit more towards the counting your place and the listening, and a bit less from the rope sight point of view, just because I think the rope sight is harder on Ringing Room. I mean, if we look at, so for example, I'll just ring 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, and 4. You've either got a backstroke or a hand stroke, so that's helpful for rope sight, but you don't necessarily have the sense of where on the backstroke or hand stroke the bells are, as you would if you were ringing. So you can see when somebody's pulling on their hand stroke, or when they're catching the sally and that sort of thing, which you would in the tower, but don't so much on Ringing Room. So there is a bit more of an emphasis on, I think, on counting places and listening. But I've heard lots of really good things about people being able to make great progress using Ringing Room on their method ringing, and learning new methods and things that will be transferable into the tower when we're back in towers, or indeed to handbell ringing. We have a handbell practice for kind of Bromley sort of ringers, and surrounding area from time to time, and they've been going really well. So it's a very useful tool. I think we'll have a go at it in a moment. So that's the end of my sort of introduction to it, and now we'll have a practical session.